Hello and welcome to Giant Mess, a super sloppy sports and entertainment podcast that covers New York Giants football, Mets baseball, movies, and television. I am your host, the real cinch, Neal Lynch. On today's episode, we'll be recapping the Week 9 contest versus the San Francisco 49ers at MetLife Stadium. Although you wouldn't know it based on the jerseys you saw in the crowd and the fans that ended up showing up to the game in East Rutherford. We'll take a look at the history of Giants trades at the NFL trade deadline, with the trade deadline coming up tomorrow, Tuesday, November 4th. Thought it would be a good idea to look back at our track record when it comes to trade deadline deals. And then we'll preview the Week 10 game against the Bears in Chi-Town. So without further ado, let's get it started up in here. Okay, well, didn't expect that. And as everyone has been saying, shame on me. Fans, columnists, reporters, prognosticators. We all thought the Giants could pull this off. We all thought we could win this game. The Niners are beatable. Look at all the injuries they have. Their offense is struggling. They're not running the ball like they usually do. Their defense is missing key pieces and allowing people to throw the ball on them, run the ball on them. They're not getting pressure on opposing quarterbacks. All the stars were aligning for a nice upset win. I thought that Jaxson Dart would come out and have himself a career day against the 49ers defense that was struggling. I thought maybe our rush defense could possibly get back on the right track. Instead, it was a get-right game for San Fran's rushing offense. In the preview, it was like, we really just need to focus on Christian McCaffrey and keep half an eye on George Kittle. And instead, McCaffrey absolutely murdered us. And I understood that we had injuries, but I thought the 49ers had more. But it goes back to what I had said in previous games leading up to this contest. Not use injuries as an excuse, and that our coaching staff should overcome that challenge. And I often cited, and I don't know if it was back-to-back weeks, I pointed to the San Francisco 49ers. And I said, look at what they're able to do. Missing Brock Purdy. They didn't have George Kittle for 5 weeks or something like that. They haven't had Ricky Pearsall. Brandon Ayuk hasn't seen the field. Fred Warner's done. Bosa's done. They're key players. They're best players. Their top players have not been on the field, and they're 5-3. How are they 5-3? I kept asking myself that, but then I kept pointing to their coaching staff. They have one of the best, if not the best, coaching staff in the league. We don't, and that is why we continue to lose these games that we should win. We're now 2-7, and we should have 4 or 5 wins at minimum. And sure, we're missing our starting safety and our starting corner. And sure, we're missing our starting wide receiver and our starting running back. So are the 49ers. We have our starting quarterback. They have their backup quarterback, a highly immobile backup quarterback who looks like he's ready to fall apart every game he plays. Looks like he's about to lose a limb every game he plays. But yet, they continue to win because they have a mastermind as a head coach. And they have a great defensive coordinator, Robert Saleh. And anytime that you have opposing coaches speaking that highly about the other team, you know you're about to get your fucking ass kicked inside out. We should have known when Robert Saleh, in his press conference leading up to this game, was praising Jaxson Dart out the ass, that we should have known that he had something up here that he felt very confident about and was like, we're going to stick it to him and we're going to keep him under wraps. Because I thought Dart would come out and light it up. I'm talking like 300 plus passing yards, like 3-4 touchdowns. I thought he was going to win the game for us, no matter how poorly our defense played. And that's not to say that Jaxson Dart played poorly. I don't think he played poorly at all. He did not have any kind of help from his supporting staff. Theo Johnson with the drop, Darius Slayton with the drop. Not a whole lot of people making plays for him. Unimaginative play calling, regressing to the inefficiency or the incompetence that we saw when Daniel Jones was the quarterback, where it's just like we're just not scheming our play calling to our team and our players are not executing. I just thought our offense could overcome the shortcomings of our defense. And I was dead wrong. And I feel like a fool. How are we going to replace Cam Scatterbo? I mentioned in the recap from the Eagles game that losing Cam Scatterbo is almost worse than, and I would go so far, I know this is probably a hot take, but I would go so far as to say it's worse than losing Malik Neighbors. I know that sounds insane, but it almost is because of the energy he brought, his never say die attitude, never giving up on a play, getting the extra yard. It's just different with him in the game and with him on the field, taking snaps and getting touches. It's just different. We have a much higher probability of winning and competing when he's on the field. Through 8 weeks, Cam Scatterbo leads all rookies in total yards from scrimmage and total touchdowns. So how are we going to replace Scat? We have to lean on Tyrone Tracy. Turns out we didn't lean on Tyrone Tracy. Devin Singletary got more carries than Tyrone Tracy. And while everyone has written off Devin Singletary, he had some pretty decent runs and made some people miss, which is his specialty, is his forte, is making people miss. Tyrone Tracy is a different kind of back in that he's not necessarily making people miss, but he's just slippery, dude. Spinning and shedding tackles. He's more of a tackle breaker than a tackle misser. Cam is just a whole nother beast. So were we able to replace Cam Scatterbo? Not even close. And that's not a knock on Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, but you got to figure if Scatterbo's in the game, he's giving us a better output than those two. Could we contain Christian McCaffrey? The numbers would have told you that we have a shot. We have at least a shot. 30th ranked rushing offense. Heading into week 9, the Giants are surrendering 5.7 yards per carry, the highest mark in the NFL. Spoiler alert, that didn't improve after this contest. CMC averaged a career low 3.5 yards per carry. He gained 490 yards, 140 rush attempts. But this is the big old butt that Sir Mix-a-Lot would be proud of. Even white boys got a shout. CMC's 1,049 total yards from scrimmage were only 7 yards shy of Jonathan Taylor's for the most in the league. So while maybe on the ground not as successful as he has been in years past, his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield is deadly, and it ended up murdering us. Catches that touchdown to tie it up in the first quarter. Everyone's saying, where's the defense? Why is no one covering their number one target out of the backfield? Well, it was a phenomenal play call by Kyle Shanahan and his crew. Absolutely perfect. And Bobby Okereke, who is responsible for CMC on that play, you can just see he just gets, it's like a tidal wave of 49ers receivers just overwhelming him. And he just gets lost in the sauce. And he gets lost in that mesh concept and has no chance of getting, I don't even think he would have got to McCaffrey if there isn't a pick play in effect here. And if the Giants run that, no doubt in my mind they get called for offensive pass interference. No doubt in my mind. But it's the 49ers, and they get away with it. And so McCaffrey's able to get the touchdown there. I think he got another touchdown or whatever. Couldn't contain him. Literally. I would love to know what the game plan was coming into this matchup. Like, what was Shane Bowen's 3 biggest takeaways or keys to the game coming into this? How is it not 1 through 3, Christian McCaffrey, Christian McCaffrey, and then maybe a 4 is George Kittle? Like, those 2 guys can't beat you. And while Kittle didn't really beat us, McCaffrey destroyed us. Gashed us nonstop. I don't know how that happens. Like, okay, you're missing a Debo, you're missing Holland. Muasau gets hurt in the game. Not that he was really doing much. You still have a lot of your other key defensive players in the game, and they didn't do shit against a quarterback who cannot scramble. Against, exactly who you have to keep tabs on at all times. Christian McCaffrey. The Giants.com crew, they put out the 10 things to watch every week, and one of the player to watch for the Giants was Jaxson Dart. And he did not play a poor game. I was just expecting more. Through 5 starts, Dart has completed around 60% of his passes for almost 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, and 3 picks for a passer rating of 90.8, while adding almost 200 yards, an additional 4 touchdowns on the ground. This has led him to being named the NFC Offensive Rookie of the Month for October. Well deserved. He's the 5th different Giant to win the award since 2002. After his performance last weekend in Philly, he became the first quarterback in the Super Bowl era with 8 or more passing touchdowns, 4 or more rushing touchdowns, and less than 5 turnovers in his first 5 career starts. And that didn't really change against this 49ers defense. Again, if he puts up this kind of performance against a fully healthy, fully stocked 49ers defense, I think people are having different thoughts and feelings about him. But he is the player to watch for the rest of the season now. There's no one else on this team that you're tuning in to watch. It's Jaxson Dart. It is the Jaxson Dart show for the rest of the season. And you just have to hope that he does not get hurt, seriously hurt or injured, because Brian Daboll and Mike Kafka have now put him in harm's way more times than they should. They just are not protecting him, knowing full well what Dart has struggled with in terms of protecting himself and keeping himself safe and secure. They have put him in harm's way, and they've become a danger to him in his progress and his development. And I love that Dart still isn't turning the ball over. I mean, he got cold-cocked deep in Giants territory. Andrew Thomas, had his guy under wraps, but then Dart is extending the play, looking for someone. No one is open downfield. And Thomas just kind of figures, oh, well, Dart either definitely has scrambled or has thrown it away by now. And of course he hasn't. Lets this guy go. And that's when Dart gets clobbered from behind, holds onto the ball. That's a situation where I feel like if it's any other quarterback that we've had over the past how many years, Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Tyrod Taylor, they're fumbling that ball, and San Fran has the ball in our territory, and that's a touchdown. Very underrated play from Jaxson Dart. It's not like gonna make a highlight reel, but it's like he held on the ball, and he keeps making amazing throws. He did have a couple throws that didn't go as according to plan. People keep citing that one throw that was behind Tyrone Tracy, but if you look at it from behind the 49ers defense, he had either McClellan or Farrell, one of those two big D tackles or edge rushers, defensive linemen, hand up. Like if he throws it perfectly on a line, it's going to get knocked down. So he threw it kind of to the backside of Tyrone Tracy, hoping that he could make the catch. He couldn't. I guess the alternative there is that you pause millisecond longer, until the 49er defensive lineman is cleared and you can throw it, or you loft it. Either way, I don't know that was going to do much. The matchup to watch, according to Giants.com, was Brian Burns versus Trent Williams. Burns headed into the matchup tied with Myles Garrett for the most sacks in the NFL with 10. He now leads the league in sacks with 11. Trent Williams has allowed 36 pressures on 320 pass block snaps for an 11.3% pressure rate, according to Next Gen Stats. That's the 10th highest rate among left tackles with 100 or more pass block snaps, and the highest for Williams since at least 2018. Prior to this season, the tackle had not allowed a pressure rate above 8.4% in any season with the Niners. So you had to think that Burns might have himself a day. And for the most part, I mean, if you're going to give MVP on defense to anyone, not that anyone deserves it, it's Brian Burns. He got the huge QB hit on Mac Jones to force it up in the air, that Abdul Carter. brought down that the Giants offense did nothing with, and Graham Gano missed the field goal. Thanks a lot, Graham Gano. And he did have a very important pass defended that forced the Niners to punt. So he had the best game out of anyone on the Giants defense, which is not saying a lot because the Giants defense was just horrid for this entire game. The 49er to watch, according to Giants.com, was George Kittle, and Kittle didn't really do a hell of a lot. Took one jet sweep that was a tackle for loss. I think he had 4 or 5 catches. He didn't really do much damage. And the stat to know was heading into week 9, the 49ers have pressured opposing quarterbacks on only 25.9% of dropbacks this season, the lowest rate in the NFL. And they didn't really get a whole hell of a lot of pressure on Dart in this game. That opening drive was a thing of beauty for the Giants. And especially in those legacy uniforms, it felt like a legacy drive from like 86 or 90. It really did, where it's just like, we're running the ball well, but we're mixing in play action. We're mixing in some nice passes, like a really nice drive that ends with an incredible effort from Theo Johnson, where he takes it. He's somewhat short of the first down, but he's able to stiff arm a guy, stay in bounds, tiptoe, and dive and get into the end zone. And that's the positive pro upside of Theo Johnson, where it's like he's a big man, should be hard to bring down, and he is when he catches the ball. The issue now has become that I believe that Dart looks at Theo as a security blanket and might be forcing the ball to him when it's not there, because you're not seeing a great success catch rate with Theo Johnson. And then when he is putting it on the money, Theo's just dropping it. So he's for sure Evan Ingram 2.0. That's what we're dealing with now, and Daniel Bellinger can't come back soon enough, because I would just rather see Belly in the game in critical downs, passing downs. I would just rather see him in there because I know he'll catch it. And maybe he's not going to get the yards after catch that Theo could get, but at least he's going to secure the catch. Niners respond with a long drive of their own. Again, this is the McCaffrey leak out to the left, where Akarika just gets the undertow. Just gets a monsoon wave poured over him to tie it up. And then Juwan Jennings puts a move on Corey Black, who was our 7th round draft pick, who we cut and then signed off the Jets practice squad because we're down so many DBs. Jennings puts a move on Black, and that's when Mac Jones hits him for the touchdown to go up 14-7. And then Niners get that 54-yard field goal towards the end of the half with a little under 2 minutes left in the first half to go up 17-7. They get another field goal at the beginning of in the third quarter to go up 20-7. Gano hits that 22-yard field goal to make it 20-10 with a little under 7 minutes left in the third quarter, and that's when I knew we're not winning the game. I mean, when Gano missed the field goal after we got set up in prime territory to score towards the end of the first half and we missed that field goal, it was like, okay, we're not winning this game. Like, I got a feeling we're in the game, but it's like we're losing the game. Like, we're just losing the game. And then when Dable plays coward football, like, odds are, I don't know, we're probably not converting on 4th and goal. We're probably not scoring a touchdown there. Just because we like offensively, it's just we could not get our act together. I just would much rather see us go for it on 4th and goal and not get it than have to settle for a 22-yard field goal. Barf. And when it's at 20-10, you felt like the energy and anything that we had going for us, because that play by Brian Burns to hit Mac Jones, which ironically the week before is not called a fumble when it happened to Dart in the 4th quarter. Very weird. It's like almost an identical play where Dart's arm is getting hit as it's coming forward and it comes out and it's ruled an incomplete pass, not a fumble. This one, it's like almost the same. Burns hits Mac Jones' arm, it goes up, and they rule it a fumble, and Abdul Carter gets the fumble recovery, not the interception. But you're in 49ers territory. It's an automatic field goal, but you got to go for the fucking jugular. How many times, how many episodes, how many post-game reactions have I done where I say, you get a turnover in enemy territory, It's already an automatic field goal. The next play, go for the end zone. You have the momentum. Seize it. Go for the end zone. Go for the end zone. And it was just you couldn't have dialed up and called a worse sequence of plays in that situation. You settle for the field goal, which Gano, of course, misses. It's like it, and I think I might have posted this on X, but I it feels like Dable and Shane are blackmailing John Mara. That's the only like they have one of the Maras tied up in a basement. Face it, not guilty. That's how I stay filthy. Shout out Biggie. Like that has to be the situation now. Like we will kill Kate or Rooney Mara, two of your most prized possessions within the family, if you fire us. That's the only answer. Because even if your track record has stunk in terms of finding a good coach and a good staff and a good GM, okay? And you don't want to make that mistake again. You said just stay the course, 1,000 points of luck. There's no other explanation. I mean, this regime has now tallied and put up so much incriminating evidence and built a case against them time and time and time after again that no one would fault you if you part ways with both these guys. No one would. Not a single person. A sane person, sorry. Because there are still people saying that Dable, it's not his fault. And it's not Shane's fault. And it's just like, you got to be kidding me, guys. Just I mean, maybe I should just put together a blog post that just outlines the many points and stack that up against Dave Gettleman, Shermer, Judge, McAdoo, and Reese, and just say, look at what they're doing and look at what the previous regimes have done. How can you say that they're any better or that they're doing like ultimately it comes down to winning games, dude. Win games. Why are the 49ers able to win games when half their squad is in the IR or IL, the hospital, the ER, the OR? Name it. Niners are banged up and they still win games because they have good coaches that develop talent, that scheme the right way, that can pick you apart. And the death knell comes with Brian Robinson Jr.'s 18-yard rush. Like if you had any kind of hope after we kicked that stupid cowardly football field goal to make it 20-10 and we're down by 10, Brian Robinson's 18-yard carry where he truck sticks Deontay Banks. That was, if you turned off the TV at that point, and there's still 11 minutes left in the game, I don't blame you. We're down 17. But again, it's like Broncos were down 19 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Come back and win. Giants are down multiple scores against the Eagles, fold up their tent and go home with their ball. Down 17 against the 49ers. What makes you think that we're going to pull what the Broncos did? Even with Jaxson Dart, who everyone loves and knows that he's capable of big plays and making plays, you kind of lose hope because, we have this crappy, awful, uninspiring defense that they're not aggressive. They're soft. They're weak. They don't pursue. And I'm not talking about, and there's still some players on defense that are trying. It feels like most of the players have tapped out and are putting in the bare fucking minimum when the game is still on the line. And that's how you know the coaches have to go, because they are getting zero effort from the majority of defensive players. They're not calling the right schemes, and then they're not having players execute. And then players are like, oh, we're not executing. We need to execute. And it's like, well, why aren't you executing? And what is the coach telling you? And why are you not listening to the coach? Oh, because you don't like the coach. Got it. Dart scores the 6-yard scramble with 8 minutes left to make it a 10-point game. Again, almost 8 minutes left on the clock. You're down by 10. That isn't a fucking eternity, dude. Look at the goddamn Bears-Bengals game. You want to talk about how crazy the Giants-Broncos game was a couple weeks ago. That Bears-Bengals game was outrageous. The Bears were up 41-27. Bengals come back, make it 42-41. I mean, there are some teams that it's never out of reach, there are some coaches that are able to get their team back in the groove and back into things. And it must stink to be a Bengals fan because it's like you have a great offense with Joe Flacco, and yet you have this shit-tastic defense that you just cannot count on. So I feel for you Bengals fans because the Giants fans are pretty much in the same boat where it's like decent to good offense, especially that we're missing our top two playmakers, and it's just a defense that does not give a fuck. And that Broncos game, I can't remember who said it or what the statistics were behind it, but I know it's in my brain, swimming around in there, that after a big, huge blown lead like that, the team ultimately suffers for it. It's a hangover. It legitimately is a hangover that carries with that team and that defense for weeks, dude. Not just the next week, but for weeks. And it has. This defense has not been the same since that fourth quarter collapse against Denver. Record number of points, yards, etc. And because it's the second time that's happened. It happened against Dallas. We come back and our defense plays well against Philly, plays okay against New Orleans, plays, whatever against we were still kind of respectable. We looked lights out in the first three quarters in Denver and then collapse in the fourth. And it has been just trash and garbage since then. And it's not going to get any better. I hate to break it to everyone, but it is not getting better. People are phoning it in and mailing it in for the rest of the season. We're 2-7. Maybe you can lose one more game and make the playoffs. That is now spreading throughout that locker room and that clubhouse. You might have a guy like Brian Burns who has dignity and respect and wants to put his best out there. But then you have guys like Dexter Lawrence. I don't even know if you could say it about Bobby Okereke, but the veteran leadership other than Brian Burns. Is Kayvon? I think Kayvon's still maybe trying to lead, but there's just no I don't. Hey, I don't know what's going on in that clubhouse in the locker room, and a lot of the beat reporters think they have a good idea of what's going on in that clubhouse and that locker room, and it's the perception is reality that you have a guy like Dexter Lawrence who just is getting into fucking feuds with ex-legends, and it's just where was Dexter Lawrence today, man? You got called out by Carl Banks. You would think that that would piss you off to no end, and then to go up against a backup center again and not do shit. Whoa, dude. He had one tackle. So you're down by 10, 8 minutes left. And I'm like, well, I think this offense can still turn around. I think this offense can still make it happen. And then the defense just all you need to do is make a stop, man. And they don't. I think it was the very next drive, if not the very next drive, a drive after that, the 49ers go right down the field and McCaffrey scores on a 3-yard run to make it 34-17. So, and then you have Darius Slayton drop a touchdown. I cannot really articulate how disappointed I am in Darius Slayton. I mean, they put a C on your fucking chest. You are a team captain. You are considered one of the veterans. You have been our de facto default wide receiver one because we just don't have anyone else that can stay healthy or outperform you. Malik Neighbors goes down, who is our wide receiver one. You're supposed to be our wide receiver two. You're not even our wide receiver 3 or 4 at this point. You just got a pretty big raise in the offseason. 3 years, 13, 12 million a year. You are getting paid, my man. You are being rewarded for your good faith and being a good soldier. And this is how you're rewarding the fans. Not showing up, dropping balls, fumbling. Gross, dude. Absolutely gross. And hopefully when we do clean house and Shane and Dable are gone and the new GM comes in, he finds a sucker to take Darius Slayton off our hands. I mean, that's where I'm at with Slayton. I used to be one of his biggest supporters. I still like him as a person, But Jesus Christ, dude, catch the fucking ball. Catch the ball. Same with Theo Johnson. Catch the ball. These are catchable balls. I think Bob Papa was saying in the Believe podcast, he saw a friggin' D-back for the Seahawks make a tougher catch on an interception. And so it's only fitting that Gunnar Olszewski catches a touchdown with 1:21 left in the game from Jaxson Dart on a beautiful throw by Jaxson Dart, right on the money to make it 34-24, to make it seem like this wasn't a complete blowout at home where half the stadium or more are 49ers fans. Gross. Yuck. Barfaroni. Expected points by unit. So despite Jaxson Dart's best efforts, we actually had a negative on our pass offense, but it was negative 0.17 expected points contributed. Our rushing offense actually had a 9.67 expected points contributed, and you have to think that if the defense just kept it within reach, reasonable reach, that we could have continued to pound the rock and stayed in this game. I think once you get down 10 to 17 points, they deviated from it or abandoned it, which in the third quarter, I don't think that's necessary. I think they should have continued with it. And even in the fourth quarter, maybe had they continued to run the ball and just kept the 49ers offense off the field, we'd have a better shot. I don't know. But this is one of our worst. I'd like to say this is one of our worst defensive games. Normally it would be in any other season, but I guess it's not. Negative 16.67 points overall from our defense. Negative 10.06 from our pass defense alone, which is crazy. And a negative 6.94 from our rushing defense. Our special teams was pretty atrocious. Our kickoff unit was really bad. Punt return unit, not great. I mean, as far as kickoffs go, to end, I mean, we were getting the Giants fans that were in attendance were booing our team off the field when the first half ended because you had that Graham Gano missed. I think that's when the Graham Gano missed field goal happened. I don't know. I'm probably getting my quarters mixed up, but it was just a poor effort from us in the first half. And then to come out in the second half, we're kicking the ball to the 49ers, and Jamie Gillen, I mean, the camera was faked out. It was like, whoa, it was that bad a kick? Like, couldn't even follow the ball. Horrible kick by Jamie Gillen, who's a punter. He's a punter. Probably shouldn't be doing kickoffs for us, but Graham Gano smells and is so old, and it's just we have fucking bungled that to infinity and beyond. And so Jamie Gillen is handling kickoffs, and it lands short of the landing zone by a mile. And so you give the Niners the ball at the 40-yard line, their own 40. Not the way to start the second half. And it's just like, what the fuck are the coaches saying at halftime? This is why I think that, Carl Banks keeps on talking about how it's on the players to execute, and it's the players not executing. But it's like, what is the coaching staff saying at halftime? That Jamie Gillen comes out and does that shit. You already ended on a sour note at the first half, and you come out on just a fucking sad trombone note with that kickoff. And then punt returns, I mean, you have your own guy, Zaire Barnes, who I guess was just called up from the practice squad, running into Gunnar Olszewski and hurting him. Like, Gunnar was hurt on that play, was down holding his knee. And it's no penalty because it's your own guy who's not being blocked into the returner. You just ran into him. Jesus Christ. Niners had 25 first downs. We had 19. They rushed for 159 yards and 2 touchdowns on almost 40 carries. Jones throws for 235 yards on 19 completions, only 24 attempts and 2 touchdowns. We did get a couple of sacks, but they put up almost 400 total yards. We had less than 300. They did have the one turnover. We had 0 turnovers. So it's like our offense is doing their part when it comes to the turnover battle. Our defense is not doing shit in terms of turnovers other than this one play that really set us up in prime territory, and weren't able to take advantage of it. We had less penalties than them. Third down conversions were about even. We were 5 of 12. They were 6 of 11. They were 1 of 1 on fourth down. And that's just the lack of respect that opponents have for our coaching staff and for our team. For opening drive, where it's fourth and manageable. They initially send out the punt team, and then Kyle Shanahan's like, whoa, wait a minute. Let's take a timeout here. We're playing the Giants. What? The Giants? They were in their own territory at this point. The Niners are in their own territory. I want to say 30 in the 30 to 40 yard range within their own territory. Call a timeout. They go back out. They get the first down. Defense, that was your opportunity. This is not like the fourth quarter where you're gassed, quote unquote, and exhausted and you're playing soft. Like, this is the first quarter. This is a legacy game. This is your, at home. This is your opportunity to come up big and to give your offense the opportunity to go up 2 scores in the first quarter, and you let them get the fourth down conversion. Niners owned the ball for 33 minutes of this game. Marcus Bowe got the start at right tackle because Jermaine Illuminor had that pec issue. I do believe he did give up a sack, but otherwise played fairly well. 49ers had allowed a league low 3 total points on their opponent's first possession of the game heading into Sunday, and that changed when Dart hits Theo for the 15-yard touchdown pass. Dart has now led the Giants to touchdowns on their first drive in 4 of 6 starts, something that we just have not been able to see for a long time. So he ended up completing 24 of 33 for 191 and 2 touchdowns. Led the team with 56 rushing yards on 8 attempts, including the 6-yard score in the fourth. He set a franchise single-season record with his 5th game of having at least one passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown. Also became the 3rd NFL rookie all-time to do it 5 times. The others are Cam Newton, who had 8 in 2011, and Justin Herbert, who had 5 in 2020. Both players went on to win the NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. You have a lot of people saying if they were to do a redraft of this past year's draft or this year's draft, Dart would be the number 1 overall consensus, hands down, which means that we would have had 2 of the top 3 picks in the NFL draft, and we're still 2-7. So it doesn't matter if we get the top draft pick. It does not matter if we get a top 5 or top 10 draft pick. We won't win with this current fucking regime. Devin Singletary had 8 carries for 43 yards. Tracy had just 5 carries for 18 yards. And you had to think that I think Tracy did get hurt in this game, and that's why you didn't see a lot of him. And because Devin Singletary took on a larger part of the workload, and Deonte Banks was the full-time starter and playing every snap, you had Jalen Hyatt returning kicks. And he did okay, I guess. He hasn't returned kicks since high school, so... We activated wide receiver Ray McCloud, who we acquired off once he was waived by the Falcons from the practice squad Sunday last week. McCloud reunited with Coach Brian Daboll, who was his offensive coordinator when Buffalo drafted the Clemson product in 2018. Aww. Last season, McCloud posted career highs in starts, catches, receiving yards, and yards from scrimmage for the Falcons, who released him on October 21st. He had 1 catch for 5 yards. Smooth move, X-Lax. Why would you go with Ray McCloud over Lil Jordan Humphrey, who is just a bigger target? Could probably have been utilized to greater effect than a Ray McCloud, who almost cost us a 15 yards because he has some kind of vendetta or animosity towards that Lenore guy, cornerback for the Niners. So McCloud didn't do much of anything. It comes down, I think it must be a salary cap thing where it's like if we sign Little Jordan Humphrey to the active roster, it'll put us over the cap and we don't have any move. I don't know, because we've exhausted his elevations from the practice squad. That's where we're at right now. So anyone thinking, oh, we're going to trade for a wide receiver like Jalen Waddle. No, we're not. No, we're not. Why would we do that when we got Ray McCloud? And we can't even afford to elevate and to sign goddamn Lil Jordan Humphrey to the roster. Dart had a 107 QB rating. Pretty decent. Darius Slayton had 5 catches on 7 targets for 62 yards. Again, he had the big drop that should have been a touchdown. If he catches it, I think it's before the 2-minute warning. That means that you may be able to kick it deep and call timeouts, and then, I don't know if that shakes out differently. And then, classic Wan'Dale Robinson stat line. These are my favorite, y'all. 9 catches on 11 targets, 46 yards. I'm going to miss that when he is not re-signed. I'm going to miss that. He had a long of 9. Yuck. I mean, honestly, that's like if you're a defense, just let the Giants do that all goddamn day. You want to hit Wandale for 3 yards and 5 yards and just, all right, go for it. Go for it, dude. Theo, 3 catches on 6 targets, 27 yards on the touchdown. And Gunner had that 1 catch for the 24-yard touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, I don't foresee us making a trade at the deadline for a wide receiver, even though the Dolphins did fire their GM and the new GM might be looking to make a lot of moves before the deadline. I guess it's possible that we might get a Jalen Waddle. You're going to have to give something up in return. And it's like, well, and maybe this is a smokescreen, but the word out of Giants camp is they want a first round. They wanted a first rounder for Kayvon Thibodeau if they were going to trade him. And then they came back on that and they said, no, we're not. He's not available. He's not on the table. So it's like, who else do you have available? Because if you're just giving up draft picks for Jalen Waddle, is Miami going to eat most of his salary? Like, you have to clear salary cap space. And while Shane has been better than his predecessor at clearing cap space, he's still, and the long term is like looking okay. He still have to get through this season. So I don't know. I also think Shane has gotten like a really bad reputation around the league. That's just the vibe and the feeling I'm getting from a lot of people in the know is like, he did not look good in Hard Knocks. And he did not look good in the Saquon doc on Prime Video. And it's like, you have, like, Dable's created a toxic environment where Wink Martindale wants to get out and does get out. Shane, there's been stories about Shane that have leaked that made him look like a complete asshole. So it's like, I don't know. Okunyawu for the Niners had a sack. And Tatum Bethune had 16 freaking combined tackles, 8 solo, 8 assists. He was all over the field. He ends up getting that borderline bogus roughing the passer call, not roughing the passer, unnecessary roughness call where Dart slides and Bethune, it's a hit to the head, but he hit the shoulder first. I don't know. I think, even if you go back 3 to 5 years ago, I don't think that's called, but it's called again. It almost feels like Jaxson Dart is getting the Patrick Mahomes treatment at this point, where it's like any kind of questionable hit, it's going in Dart's favor, which I'm not complaining about, but it feels a little dirty. It's like, we didn't deserve that. So Bethune was all over the place. He was talking shit to Dart, crazy amount of shit to Dart throughout the game. He had a pass defended as well. Renardo Green had a couple passes defended, 6 total tackles. I'm looking through these 49ers defenders, and is there anyone that's really standing out to you? Is like, oh, they took over the game, Jair Brown had a pass breakup. Clellan Ferrell had a sack. It's just, a lot of names that I don't really recognize that just played well. And it's not like, Salah didn't really, I don't think he changed up the scheme that much. They hadn't been blitzing and pressuring a lot, and they didn't really bring a lot of guys in this game. It was like, we'll send 4 and then send everyone else, retreat into coverage. So in addition to Holland and Adebo being out, Cordell Flott's out with a concussion because Bobby Okereke punched him out in the game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So you had Deonte Banks and Corey Black starting at corner, Dane Belton filling in opposite Tyler Nubin at safety. Mac Jones ends up completing his first 14 passes for 143 yards and 2 touchdowns. His first incompletion didn't come until the second play of the second half. How does that fucking happen? McCaffrey runs 28 times for 106 yards and a touchdown. I think he was something like 3rd in franchise history in terms of percentage of touches or touches per game behind Frank Gore, who's like just the epitome of workhorse at the running back position. McCaffrey also caught 5 passes for 67 yards and a touchdown. Brian Burns now has 11 sacks in 9 games. As we mentioned, it puts him on pace for 20 sacks. The NFL single season record is 22 and a half sacks, shared by Michael Strahan from 2001 and TJ Watt in 2021. Burns also has the most sacks by a Giants player through 9 games since Strahan had 15 at this point in the 2001 season when he was named NFL Defensive Player of the Year. Wild to think that you could have the Defensive Player of the Year and the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and you still have one of the worst records in the NFL and could be lined up for a top 5 pick yet again. How does that happen? Coaching, lack of depth. 49ers had 8 different players record an offensive play of 10 yards or longer and 4 different plays with catches of 20 yards or more. Good God, this defense could not give a single fuck. Jones had a QB rating of 135.2. My guy went 5 of 10 in the second half and still won the game. Brian Robinson had 5 carries for 53 yards. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. I'm looking at the receivers. It's like Juwan Jennings caught 4 balls on 5 targets for 41 yards and the touchdown along a 20. You had one other target get more than 2 catches. That was George Kittle, who had 4 catches on 4 targets for 32 yards. Not like he was blowing everything up. I mean, I think Nacho had a decent game. He had a sack, 6 combined tackles. He celebrated a tackle when we're down multiple scores, 5 yards down the field. I mean, at least he's showing you some kind of energy and enthusiasm. I guess that's good. It's just like, hey, man, read the room. Dane Belton had 14 freaking tackles, 10 of which were assists. Bobby O had 14 tackles and a tackle for loss. Tyler Nubin had 9 tackles. Corey Black, 8 tackles and a pass defended and a tackle for loss. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, who is not a mythical creature. He's not a legend. He's real. He exists. He had 8 total tackles. But, I mean, you have to scroll down the box, down the stat lines to find your guys. Abdul Carter, 1 tackle. Dexter Lawrence, 1 tackle. Kayvon Thibodeau, 1 tackle. It's not like this 49ers offensive line is great. It's not the 49ers offensive line of yesteryear that were like top notch. They're carrying him to top rushing attack, and it's not that same offensive line. Your 3 of their 4 biggest, your whatever you want to call them, the 4 horsemen, the core 4, whatever, fabulous 4, like 3 of your 4 just didn't show up. What the fuck, Dexter Lawrence? What the hell, Kayvon Thibodeau? And what the good goddamn Abdul Carter? Where were you? Giants have lost 3 consecutive games while allowing 33 or more points in each outing, their longest such streak since 2018. You look back at that 2018 season, that was Pat Shurmur's first season. He's an offensive-minded coach. Offense got off to a really slow start, but then cranked it up in the second half of the season and was one of the best units in the NFL and had us in a lot of games, and our defense just let us down. So while we did go 5-11 in 2018, if you had just a competent average defense, we would have gone 8-8, 9-7, possibility of making the playoffs. JMS got hurt again. Again, there are people saying that he's improved and he's getting better, but it just feels like you could probably just roll with Schlotman or Schlotman, however you want to pronounce it, and you'd be fine. Muasau lost for the game due to an ankle. I don't know. That's like a huge loss. And then Bo Collins left with a neck issue. Again, not a huge loss. So injuries were whatever. That might be the shortest. I know that, most recaps are about an hour long. If you follow a lot of the most popular podcasts, Giants podcasts, I usually tend to go a little bit longer than that with my recaps. This is the shortest one. There's just not a lot to talk about. It's the same shit, different bun, same shit, different day. Rinse and repeat, Groundhog Day. That's like the mantra for the season. It's like you're not seeing any learning. You're not seeing any developing other than maybe Jaxson Dart, maybe Marcus Bowe, offensive line-ish. Other than that, I mean, like, Brian Burns is giving you everything he has almost every game, and it seems like he's the most consistent, reliable performer on defense. Other than that, it's like Kayvon can disappear. Abdul can disappear. Dexter is just like, do you want to be here? It's just like, it's okay if you don't. Just let us know so we can get something in return for you, my guy. And you'll probably go on and win a Super Bowl somewhere else. I mean, that's just where we're at as a fan base. It's like there's like this crazy amount of hope with Jaxson Dart, but then everything else just is like, fuck, we're in such a bad state. And is it because of the coaching staff? Because you on paper, everyone agreed defense is better this year. We expect to be a top 10 defense. I said that. And I continue to say it every time I come on this freaking microphone, is that we expected the defense to carry the team this year, and the defense would have to carry the team for us to even think about the playoffs. And instead, they have let us down in every possible way. How does that happen? You have the personnel. Kayvon, Dexter, Burns, Okereke. What's up, dude? And you didn't have a Debo in Holland, I get it, but you still have Tyler Newman. You still have Dane Belton. You still have Deonte Banks. We traded up for in the first effing round, my guy. Play like it. Like when Corey Black is out playing you, that's a problem. That's a problem. Our 7th rounder who we cut and then had to sign off a practice squad. So I think even when we do get Holland back and a Debo back, it'll be better, but it's just you're not going to get that much better results. You're still going to lose games because your defense can't play. Like, what happened to the defense that we saw against the Chargers and the Eagles? And say what you like. They disappointed us and let us down in the Chiefs game and the Commanders game and the Cowboys game. But the Cowboys game was like just awful across the board for our defense. But you look at the Chiefs game, you look at the Commanders game, it's like, okay, they weren't quite to where we would like them to be. When we needed a stop, they couldn't get it. But at least they were somewhat containing the damage a little bit. We thought that that Thursday night Eagles game was the turning point. We're like, okay, this is the Giants defense that we're going to see for the rest of the year. This is the defense that came to play, punching the ball out, intercepting the ball, good on third down, good in the red zone. Like, this is the defense that we want. And you even saw just a glimpse of it in the game against the Niners when Burns gets that hit on Jones that forces the ball to Carter. You're like, okay, this is the turning point. We just keep thinking there's a turning point, and there just isn't. And there is no reason to believe why it's going to change. What makes you think that that's going to change? 2023 was an interesting season because everything went to shit, and yet we were still in games and could still win games, and we came up short in those games, but you still felt like, wow, this season could have gone completely off the rails. We could have won 1 or 2 games the whole season, and so we mustered 6, and we could have had 8 or 9. And then you followed up that season with just an abysmal 2024, where you threw your quarterback under the bus, forced his release, didn't get anything for him in return, which drives me up a wall. How this organization fails to capitalize on opportunities and doesn't have an accurate reading of the room. Why didn't you get anything for Saquon? Why didn't you get anything for Xavier? Why didn't you get anything for Daniel? Why aren't you getting anything for these players that have value? Because you think that they want to be here. Why do they want to be here when you treat them like shit? Why? Why? So that's the Niners game. Hell of a way to kick off November. Let's take a look at the NFL trade deadline history as it relates to Giants trades. Giants trades at the NFL trade deadline. So not trades in the offseason, not trades around the draft, but trades in the month of October, November, right around the trade deadline, in-season trades, if you will. The first that I could find, powerful as the internet and chat GPT are, they can't seem, the record and documentation prior to the 80s, not great. But so the first one, if we're going in chronological order, is Rob Carpenter in 1981. Giants traded for the 6'1", 224-pound back who was a third-round draft pick of the Houston Oilers in the 1981 season after Week 4. The deadline was Tuesday, October 6th, 1981, which is super duper early, my guy. Giants were 2-2 after week 4, having just lost to the Cowboys. We then won after the Rob Carpenter trade. We won 3 of our next 4 to move to 5-3. We then lost 3 in a row, but then we won 4 of our last 5 games to make the playoffs with a 13-10 overtime win versus Dallas. That was one of 3 overtime games that the 1981 Giants played. That season, we were 2-1 in those games. We ended up beating Philadelphia in the wild card, and we lost in the divisional round to the eventual Super Bowl champion 49ers in San Francisco. You look at the final score, and you're like, oh, man, blowout. But I think I watched it on YouTube during the pandemic, and it was a lot closer than you would think. So we get Rob Carpenter. Oilers get the third round pick in 1982. The Oilers used that third round pick in 1982 on Stan Edwards, a Michigan Wolverines running back with the 72nd pick overall. He ended up playing 6 seasons from 82 to 87 and only had 1 year as a starter. His weighted approximate value was 7. Played in 56 total games, accumulating a little over 500 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns and over 400 receiving yards and a touchdown. His best season came in 1984. Meanwhile, Rob Carpenter was Houston's, as we mentioned, third round pick in the 77 NFL draft. He was only 26 years old when the Giants acquired him. He started 51 of 55 games for the Giants over roughly 5 seasons, and he averaged 3.5 yards per carry and 46.8 yards per game on about 13 rushing attempts per game. He started 13 games in 1981, achieving a career high in rushing yards and total scrimmage yards with a little over 1,100. It was the third highest AV, approximate value, of his 10-year career. He also led the league in the playoffs in total rushing yards and rushing yards per game. Giants only played 2 playoff games that year, but yet he led the league in total rushing yards in the postseason and rushing yards per game. The bulk of those yards came in the 27-21 win over the Eagles in the wild card in Philadelphia, where he carried the ball 33 times for 161 yards. And Saquon, he wasn't trying to negotiate a contract and got all huffy puffy. He only played 5 games in 82. That's because it was a strike-shortened season. The next best season for the Giants was in 84 at age 29 when he started all 16 games and had a career high in rushing attempts and touches, touchdowns, and first downs. And it was the second highest total scrimmage yards of his tenure with the Giants. I don't know about overall in his career. I forgot to note that. My B. Oddly enough, the highest approximate value of his Giants tenure came in 1985 when he blocked for Joe Morris. That's where, people tend to get a little bothered, hot and bothered by Pro Football Reference and how they calculate approximate value, because it tends to overvalue blocking and offensive linemen, tight ends, for their blocking ability. And Joe Morris did lead the league in rushing touchdowns in 85. I think he had 21. And Rob Carpenter was his fullback. So I guess that's why he got an 8 approximate value, despite, having much lower numbers than he did in 81 and 84. Carpenter became a huge part of the 81 playoff run. He'd been Earl Campbell's blocking back in Houston before being dealt to New York midseason. So what a backfield that is. Fucking A. Earl Campbell and Rob Carpenter, some big-ass boys, dude. Next biggest trade at the trade deadline for the New York Football Giants came in 86. This is kind of a wild one because it doesn't really make a lot of sense on paper. It's like, okay. In 86, the Giants traded for Otis Anderson. O.J. Anderson on October 8th, 1986. The deadline was about a week later, Tuesday, October 14th, 1986. The Giants were 4-1 after having just beaten O.J. Anderson and the St. Louis Cardinals 13-6. In that game, O.J. had 18 carries for 55 yards for the Cards in that game. We ended up finishing, obviously, 14-2, winning Super Bowl 21, and O.J. ended up getting a touchdown in that contest. So the Giants got Otis Anderson from the Cards. The Cardinals received the 2nd and 7th round picks in 1987 draft. This was their last year in St. Louis, 87, before moving to Phoenix for the 88 season. Their 2nd round pick, they ended up trading to Miami, who selected wide receiver Scott Schwetty Balls, who played 46 games over 4 seasons. The 7th-round pick was used on tight end William Harris, who played 30 games over 4 seasons. There was the strike season in 87, so OJ didn't see a lot of time then. He didn't see many touches in 88. And then for any running back who has been called over the hill, past his prime, riding into the sunset, in the dusk of his career, dawn of a career, whatever. At age 32, in 1989, O.J. Anderson became the full-time starting running back for the New York Football Giants. It was his only 1,000-yard rushing season with the Giants. He had a career high in rushing touchdowns, and he ended up running for 120 yards on 24 carries against the Los Angeles Rams in that, to this day, a divisional round playoff loss in overtime that haunts me. 1913 in overtime. That was the infamous Jim Everett pass to Flipper Anderson to end the game. It was a home game. We had home field advantage. We were finished 12-4 in 89. That broke my fucking heart. So the 89 season, I mean, we ran it back in 2008. 2008, we were dominating, got home field advantage. I think we were 12-4 that year. And we lost the Eagles in divisional round too. So 89 and 2008. What coulda, woulda, shouldas, what ifs, the biggest what ifs in Giants history. He did win the Pro Football Writers Association Comeback Player of the Year award in 1989, rightly deserved. The fact that he was not seeing any kind of touches in 86, 87, 88, and then ended up going for 1,000 and having as many rushing touchdowns as he did in 89 was huge. 1990 was actually his second best season as a Giants player. He had the second most touchdowns in his 14-year career, averaged 4 yards per carry and 83 yards per game in the postseason. He had 21 carries and 80 yards against the Bears in that 31-3 win, 20 carries and 67 yards in that 15-13 win over the Niners in San Fran to end their three-peat run. And then 102 yards on 21 carries against the Bills in the 2019 win when he was named Super Bowl 25 Most Valuable Player. In 91 and 92, he backed up Rodney Hampton. This was the last in-season trade the Giants made until 2013, dude. So we're talking about 96, 06 is 20... like 27 years, we didn't make an in-season trade. How about that? Thanks, Mel. So let's fast forward to 2013. It is kind of interesting. I wonder if in that span, I mean, that is a long-ass time to not make a trade. I wonder how many trades were on the table or discussed. That would be fun. It's like, you know how the government is now releasing unredacted, well, are they? It might still be redacted, but like all these papers about dossiers and classified files about the JFK assassination and UFOs and all that stuff. It would be cool if the Giants could just release like what calls were made from 87 to 2012 in terms of trades, in-season trades. It'd just be fun to review and say like, oh, is there anything that would have changed? I don't know. That's what makes the O.J. Anderson trade in 86 so interesting, because it's like you have your running back in Joe Morris, and he's doing phenomenal. He's doing great. Leads the league in rushing touchdowns in 85. 86, he's doing well, and you trade for a running back who's going to be a backup. It's just very interesting. And to give up a second and a seventh for a guy who's just not going to really see the field and become your starter until 89. To think that could have gone down as such a bad trade if that second rounder pans out and OJ doesn't become the starter in 89. Are we viewing that in a whole new light? But instead, it's like it turns out to be one of the best trades out there. So that's why when we get to some of these later trades, like the Leonard Williams trade, which is now people have wavered on that back and forth, and people are now out on that. Just hold up. Wait a minute. Fill my cup. Put some liquor in it. So 2013 rolls around. John Beeson is acquired from the Panthers via trade on October 3rd or 4th, 2013. The deadline was October 29th, so this happened well before the deadline. We were 2-6 at the time. We just beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. Actually, hold up. That's not right. Oh, Neal, you're better than this. That's on me. I got a little excited. Happens. Goo. All right, so October 3rd or 4th, we are actually 0-4 at this time. So I miscalculated. We were 0-4 at the time we made the trade. We had lost a very close opener to Dallas, which some would say we probably should have won. We then got demolished by the Broncos at home in a Manning Bowl that should be forgotten. This is the season that Peyton went off and had like 55 passing touchdowns and broke records. So, and then shit the bed in the Super Bowl at MetLife, ironically. Get crushed by the Broncos. We get shut out and blown out by the Panthers. We get blown out by the Chiefs. So we're 0-4. Our point differential is very negative. And so that's when we make the trade for Beeson, and we end up losing the next two to the Eagles and to the Bears. So we're now 0-6, and then we went on a 4-game win streak to go to 4-6. We lose a heartbreaker at home against the Cowboys, 24-21. Beat the Washington by a touchdown, and then we end up getting blown out by the Chargers and Seahawks to ruin any kind of chances of making the postseason. But we finished 7-9, and it's like if you had just won the opener against Dallas, won that close game against Dallas right around Thanksgiving time, you're looking at that's 2 more wins. That's now 9-7, and then maybe you pull out that game against the Bears in Chicago, you're looking at 10-6. It's like, I don't think it would have mattered too much, because you look at how things panned out in 2013, and the Giants would have to been 11-5 or 12-4 just to get a fucking wild card. I guess 10-6. If they do end up going 10-6, they would have tied with the Eagles, but I think we got swept by the Eagles that year. Oh no, we went 1-1. So maybe the tiebreaker would have paid off and we could have won the division. But in terms of the wild card, Saints were 11-5 and the Niners were 12-4. So odds are you're probably still not making the playoffs there. But Beeson, we ended up giving the Panthers our 7th round pick in 2014, which ended up getting traded away, and Jabari Price was selected. I don't think he did much of anything. So, you didn't give up a whole lot, and it's not like you got a lot back with Beeson. He only started 8 more games over the final 2 seasons with the Giants. He was constantly hurt, but for sure gave the defense a boost in that season, and the defense is what really carried us in the second half of that 2013 season. I mean, it's not like our competition was that great. I mean, we played a really bad Raiders team at home where they had a backup quarterback. I want to say it was Terrell Pryor. And then we played Scott Dolzine in a home game against the Packers. So we weren't playing like top-notch competition, but at least they showed up and at least gave us some kind of hope down the stretch. Fast forward to 2018, that's when we traded both Eli Apple and Damon Harrison. We traded Eli Apple to the Saints, and we traded Damon Harrison, Snacks, to the Lions. This was the sell-off that, it makes sense when you consider that Gettleman took over late in the 2017 season and immediately started making moves. And then in 2018, when we get off to that pretty bad start, it's like, well, Eli Apple, there's a negative perception of him. He's underperformed. Let's ditch him. Damon Harrison was an interesting one. It was just like, he's probably the guy that gave you the most value at that time. But so we traded Eli Apple on October 23rd, and then on the next day, October 24th, we trade Damon Harrison. The deadline was October 30th, so this is like a full week before it's supposed to go down. The trades happened after the Week 7 Monday night loss to the Falcons in Atlanta, 23-20. I don't think it was actually that close. I think we ended up scoring a garbage time touchdown towards the end of that game to make it 3 points. Our record was 1-6 when the trades happened. We ended up losing to Washington at home the following week to go to 1-7. Then we had the bye week. Coming out of the bye, though, we won 4 of 5 games after that bye week and should have won the 5th in that span versus the Eagles in Philadelphia. That was the 25-22 loss when rookie Jake Elliott, I believe, kicked that 60-plus yard field goal to end the game. Woof. That was a big blown lead. And then at 5-8, we got shut out by the Titans at home. That was a dreary, rainy, cold, awful game to watch where Derrick Henry just mowed us over. And then we blew a lead against the Colts in Indianapolis, losing by 1, 28-27. Then we had a 1-point loss to the Cowboys in the season finale, 36-35. So the estimated win-loss record, according to Pro Football Reference, was 7-9. I think we could have been 8-8 because we also had that Panthers game where we lost on a 60-yard plus field goal from Graham Gano. Haha, irony. And then the broadcast ended, but there was still a kickoff return that we almost took to the house. I blogged about it. I was like, wait a second. They cut away from the game, but yet we almost took that return to the house and won the game. So if we say we go 8-8 against the Panthers, I think there's another game in there. You could have won 9-7. It's possible at 9-7 you make the playoffs, but if we're 8-8, we would have lost the playoff spot to the Vikings, who went 8-7-1. So that's coulda, woulda, shoulda. With that, you wonder, like, were those trades? The Eli Apple trade, I don't think anyone complained about or was up in arms about. The Damon Harrison trade is interesting. He was not playing all that well in 2018, but like, goddamn, if we had an Eli Apple or Damon Harrison towards the end of that season against the Cowboys and Colts, or would things have turned out differently? I don't know. Especially when you look back at like what we got in return, right? So for Eli Apple, we give the Saints Eli Apple. We get back a 2019 fourth-round pick that was subsequently traded and ended up being Ugo Amadi, who I don't think did much of anything. But this is how crazy the timeline gets and how things go off the charts, and it's just like the butterfly effect. This is the draft, the 2019 draft. So we trade away a corner in Eli Apple, who's many are labeling a first-round bust. Didn't play up to expectations. Never really became a CB1 for us. So we deal him to the Saints. We then use our second, fourth, and fifth round selections to trade, and we then use 3 of our picks in the 2019 draft, our 37th, 132nd, 142nd. So the second, fourth, and fifth round selections. We give those to Seattle to trade up into the first round, back up into the first round to get DeAndre Baker. So if you remember, we take Jones at 6, we take Dexter Lawrence at 17, and then we trade it back up to get DeAndre Baker. And we're like, Dave Gettleman, you son of a bitch, you done it again. And it turns out, well, we screwed over Daniel Jones. Dexter Lawrence looks like he wants out, and DeAndre Baker was an even bigger bust than Eli Apple. So we gave up our fourth round pick to get kind of indirectly get DeAndre Baker. And we also gave the Saints in the Eli Apple trade our 2020 7th round pick, or we get the 2020 7th round pick from the Saints, which we used on TJ Brunson, who suited up for 5 games. So Eli Apple ended up playing played better for the Saints after the trade. Not to say like he was all pro or Pro Bowl or anything like that, but he played better with the Saints than he did with us, especially in that season. He ended up playing for 7 different teams, so it's not like, I don't know. With journeyman, it's like, are you just a nice guy, good guy that, you don't mind being traded, or are you like kind of toxic and people don't want you to be around the clubhouse? I don't know. His Eli Apple's best seasons came from 21 to 2022 with the Cincinnati Bengals when he made the trip to the Super Bowl, and I think he got torched and burnt a bunch of times in that Super Bowl. And then he's only played 5 games in the past 2 seasons. He's actually technically I think he's on the 49ers practice squad, or he's just been waived from it. So that trade didn't pan out for us. And then the Damon Harrison trade with the Detroit Lions. We got the Lions' 5th round pick in 2019, which was subsequently traded and to Seattle. And that was part of the package sent to Seattle to trade up for DeAndre Baker. Seattle ended up using that pick on linebacker Ben Burr-Kirven, and only played 2 seasons. We ended up forfeiting our 3rd round pick in that 2019 draft because we had selected Sam Beal in the supplemental draft. He didn't end up doing shit. And then the Lions ended up getting, Damon Harrison, who played better with the Lions for the rest of 2018 than he had with us. He actually ended up tying a career high in sacks, 3.5, with the Lions in 2018. And then he only played 14 more games over 3 more seasons with 3 different teams. So who's to say? I mean, we didn't, those trades, trading away Eli Apple and Damon Harrison, resulted in us giving up a king's ransom for DeAndre Baker, who lasted a season. But then there's the domino effect, because I think did we trade DeAndre Baker to the Chiefs? I don't remember. Oh boy. Then we go the very next year. Dealer Dan Gettleman trades for Leonard Williams. This was got a lot of negative reactions from the Giants fan base, or at least the Giants media, who were like, "What are you doing, Dave?" So this trade went down over the span of the October 20th and 29th of 2019. The official deadline was the 29th, so snuck it in. We had just lost our Week 8 game versus the Lions that we probably should have won to go to 2-6. Again, at 2-5, 2-6, why are you a buyer at the deadline? I'll never know. We ended up getting blown out by the Cowboys at home after that, after acquiring Leonard, and we lost by a touchdown to the Jets. We only won 2 more games, and the defense only had 1 good game that came against Chicago in a 19-14 loss. So we get Leonard Williams, and we gave the Jets our 2020 third-round pick, which ended up being the Jets taking safety Ashton Davis, who was kind of meh. And then we also gave up a 2021 conditional 4th or 5th round pick, which hinged on whether or not Big Cat re-signed before the 2021 league year, which he did not. And so it ended up being a 5th round pick, which the Jets used on cornerback Michael Carter, who was meh. This was the first completed trade between the Giants and the Jets. And, well, I would say that Leonard was a big reason why we were competitive in 2020. And I don't know, 2022, he had a pretty decent season and was okay in 2023. It's just he never played up to he was one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid defensive lineman, but was never the top defensive lineman. You know what I mean? Like, you're getting a contract that's comparable to an Aaron Donald, but you're not Aaron Donald. It's like you're not garbage. You're not awful. You're not even really average. You're above average, but you're not quite to the level of what the money you're receiving. So that will come. We're going in chronological order, so we'll get back to the Leonard Williams fiasco in a bit. But in 2020, the next season, so we had signed Marcus Golden in free agency in the 2019 offseason, and then we turned around and traded him right back to the Arizona Cardinals on October 23rd, 2020. This was almost 2 weeks before the trade deadline happened on November 3rd, 2020. We had just lost the Thursday night game versus the Eagles, again, 22-21. Probably should have won that game to go to 1-6. We then ended up losing the Monday night game versus Tampa Bay, 25-23, another game we should have won. We then won 4 in a row to go 5-7, but we lost in the next 3 to finish 6-10, barely missing the playoffs, which is a weird statement. We ended up getting a 6th round pick in 2021 that we used on Rodarius Williams, who played 8 games over 2 seasons and had 1 start. And the Cardinals received Marcus Golden, who had 10 sacks and 27 QB hits in 2019, which was a career high with the Giants. It was his best season as a pro. He only had 1 start in 2020 in 7 games. That was a really weird situation. I can't remember why. I think because we signed Kyler Fackrell, and did we have what's his face at that point? I don't know. So, he played better with the Cardinals. He had 11 sacks in 2021. Could we have used those 11 sacks in 2021? Yeah, you could say that. So that trade didn't pan out that well. And then 2022, October 27th and 28th, 2022, we traded Kadarius Toney, wide receiver, our 2021 draft pick, the last draft in the Dave Gettleman era, which is gone down as probably the worst in franchise history. Deadline was November 1st, and we had just held on, if you remember, to beat the Jaguars in Jacksonville. We had a nice defensive stand at the end where Trevor Lawrence has that pass that is just short of the goal line, and our defense is able to swarm and make the tackle and hold the receiver out of the end zone to go to 6-1. After that trade, where we trade away Kadarius Toney to the Chiefs, we ended up going 3-6-1. We beat a Houston Texans team that had Miles Davis, what's his name? Miller time? The backup quarterback. It was not Deshaun Watson at that time. It was a backup quarterback, and we beat them, and that was the game where we gave Saquon the ball 35 times, and he was not happy about it because the contract negotiations had just happened, and he didn't reach a deal, and then they gave him the ball 35 times, and that's when he was probably officially done with the Giants, despite having a winning record and going to the playoffs. We then tied Washington and beat Washington on a questionable call. We should have beat them in the first game that we tied, and maybe not have beaten them in the second game. And then we beat a Colts team that was in disarray. So that 2022 season is tough to swallow when you look back on it. In that trade, we received the Chiefs' 2023 compensatory third-round pick, which we then traded to the Raiders for Darren Waller. And we also got a sixth-round pick in the 2023 draft, which we traded to the Houston Texans for Keon Crossan. Chiefs got the Kadarius Toney, who didn't play a huge factor in them making the playoffs and their playoff run, but did have a big play here or there. He obviously had the huge punt return against the Eagles in the Super Bowl win. So, did we win that trade? We thought we won the trade at the time, and then Darren Waller retired after the 2023 season because he's a bitch. He doesn't like to block in the cold. So, did we win that trade? I don't know, man. No. I mean, Waller was either injured or I don't know. That seemed like a slam dunk. We won the trade, but I don't think anyone won that trade, really. The Chiefs, I guess, because it's like at least they got something out of Kadarius Toney. Meanwhile, Darren Waller, big drop against the Eagles that would have put us in range to score a touchdown. Not failing to bring in the ball against the Bills. I know he was being held, but that's a game where it's like, I don't know. And then we come to the last in-season trade before the trade deadline. That's the one where we dealt Leonard Williams to the Seahawks on October 30th, 2023. The deadline was Halloween. Giants got a second-round pick in 2024 and a fifth-round pick in 2025. We used that second-round pick in 2024 on the best safety in the draft that year, Tyler Nubin, who has played 22 games and 97% of defensive snaps, has 8 tackles for loss, but only 2 pass breakups, 1 forced fumble, and 1 fumble recover. And the 2025 fifth-round pick was Marcus Bowe. So this is and the Seahawks get Leonard Williams. It turns out that the Seahawks only had to take the veteran minimum after the Giants ate most of his remaining 2023 salary. I think the Seahawks ended up re-signing him to a longer contract extension. And it's safe to say that he's thriving with the Seahawks now. I neglected to put down his numbers since being traded from the Giants, but I mean, he's like a Pro Bowler. Yeah, he was a Pro Bowler. He was a finalist for the AP Defensive Player of the Year in 2024. So after he was traded from the Giants, he played in 8 games for the Giants in 2023, only had 1.5 sacks, approximate value of 3, 5 QB hits. He goes to the Seahawks and plays the remaining 10 games. He gets 4 sacks and 11 QB hits. And then last season in 2024, he starts 16 of 16 games played. He had an interception for 92 yards, 3 passes defended, 11 sacks, 64 combined tackles, and 28 QB hits. It was the best season of his frickin' career. And then thus far this season, in 8 games, he has 4 sacks and 11 QB hits. So he's kind of not quite on the same pace, but similar type production than he was in 2024. And imagine he'll probably get another Pro Bowl nod. So, was that a bad trade for the Giants? It's looking that way, but it's still I think it's still too early to tell. Right now, it looks like a loss. I know that currently because Tyler Nubin weighted approximate value of 5. Hasn't been the ball hawk that we thought he was. In college at Minnesota, he was picking balls off. He was forcing turnovers. He hasn't done any of that shit. He's getting beat. People criticize him and take him down for his poor angles. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. He's not missing a lot of games due to injury. He did miss the last 4 games of last season, but hasn't done much. Is he god awful? No, but he's just not making the plays that we were hoping he would make, having been deemed the best safety in the NFL draft in 2024. And then Marcus Bowe, he's not a starter year 1, but goddamn, he's filled in against the Cowboys when James Hudson was losing his goddamn mind. Played well there. Illuminor isn't able to suit up against the 49ers in week 9. He comes in and he allows a sack, but overall, I think there was a positive grade there. It wasn't like he was unplayable. So, time will tell. Maybe Nubin turns around with a different defensive coordinator, and maybe Marcus Bowe has shown you enough to think that, hey, maybe we can move Illuminor into guard. We can finally move on from Greg Van Roten. And then you have Marcus Bowe at right tackle, you have Illuminor at right guard, and your offensive line has improved yet again. So it would take a lot for us to win this trade. We need Nubin and Bowe to really become one of those two has to become a Pro Bowler, or just a long-term dependable starter where they're getting a second contract and they're considered above average for their position. Maybe not necessarily all pro or Pro Bowl, but long-term starter that is contributing and making plays and at least helping our team be better. That being said, fuck, man. I'd be curious to know what Seahawks fans think because I still think he's getting a lot of money and not playing up to his contract. But it's a Pro Bowl season 2024, and it looks like he's going to have another one in 2025. So, again, players come to our organization and don't play up to their potential or capability, and then they go to another organization and they play better. That's the running theme here. Not great. Not great. So that is the history of Giants in-season trades before the NFL trade deadline. Let me know if I missed anything. All right. Let's preview the Week 10 game for the New York Football Giants against the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 5-3 under first-year head coach Ben Johnson, former Lions offensive coordinator. This game is on my birthday, Sunday, November 9th, 1 o'clock at Soldier Field. The Vegas line is Bears by 3.5. Absolutely 1,000,000% smash the Bears on that line, on that spread. Oh my God. Are they gonna they're gonna win by at least a score. Definitely more than a 3.5. Although it's tempting to take the Giants on that. It's tempting. But I still think the Bears win by a healthy margin. And the over-under is 48. I'd say take the over on that shit for sure. And you'll understand why once I get into a lot of these numbers. The Bears leaders. So they're, obviously Caleb Williams has almost 2,000 passing yards and 12 touchdowns thus far in the season. Rome Odunze is their top target, 31 catches, 473 yards, and 5 touchdowns. DeAndre Swift is their top runner, despite he's missed a few games of late due to injury. And the other back that they have is from Rutgers. I can't pronounce his name because I'm white, but he's also a pretty decent back. Bears lead this series. You know what's wild about this? The Bears and Giants have been around forever, 100+ years. Two of the original-ish teams in the NFL have only played 63 times. That's wild, right? That feels like this is where, I think the NFL is starting to open it up more to more interesting, not gimmicks, but promotions or campaigns or stunts or whatever you want to label you want to put on it. similar to like the NHL. Like the NHL just had a game with the Avalanche and Carolina Hurricanes. The Avalanche wore jerseys, and the Carolina Hurricanes wore Hartford Whalers jerseys. Just throwback, retro, vintage. Like they're not even in the same town, but they're franchises that moved to these new locations. I just thought it was interesting, and they looked great, by the way. Why not have we have these legacy games where we wear our legacy uniforms, where we're honoring the rivalries we've had. So we've worn our legacy uniform against the Bears in 2022. We typically wear our legacy uniforms against against Washington and against 49ers. Those are all like 80s rivalry games, and that's why we wear the 80s legacy uniforms. Why not just make this a rivalry game? I feel like there should be like I understand it throws a wrench into the whole scheduling system because it's like you want to make sure there's some parity. You want to make sure it's like the third place finisher from last year faces the third place finisher from this. I get all that. I just think there should be, if not every year, every other year, every year you should have a different rivalry game, no matter where you finish. So like the Giants should play the Bears. If we have like 3 out of division rivals, if you want to call it, the Bears, Niners, and I don't know who that third team is. Just every other year, rotate these rivalry games, or just have them every year. I would love that. We should be playing the Bears every year. We just should. It just feels right. Yeah. So the Bears lead the series. They've won 36 times out of 63 games. They're weirdly enough, they're 22. We're 22. 31-2 against them in the regular season. So we've won 22 times, we've lost 31 times, we've tied twice, and we're 3-5 in the postseason. If you go back to 1991, so after we beat them in the 1990 playoffs, since 1991, we've it's about even. I think we played 16 times, and the record's 8-8, but we have lost 3 of our last 4 games against Chicago. All 3 of those losses have come in Chicago. Our last win in Chicago was the Super Bowl year, December of 2007, when we came from behind and won 27-21. No, sorry. Idiot. We have lost, Jesus. Yeah, it was December 2nd, 2007. We won 21-16. I believe we came from behind. So we've actually lost the last 4 games in Chicago. So we have not won a game in Chicago in damn near 18 years. That's a full-grown adult, just about. Bears are 2-1 at home. We are 0-5 on the road. I do not expect that to change. I think this is going to be a shootout, right? I think both defenses are really hurting, the Giants more so than the Bears. And the Bears just have, on account of Ben Johnson, just have a better offense completely. They're 6th in points scored per game on offense. And even though their defense is 29th in points allowed per game, they are first. The team is first in takeaway differential, plus 13. Offense does not turn the ball over. Defense forces a lot of turnovers. They are 10th offensively in passing yards per game, 2nd in rushing yards per game. So if you thought, oh, well, maybe we'll bounce back after another piss poor showing from our run defense against the 30th rush offense in the league, let's see how we stack up against the 2nd best rushing team in the league. This one's going to get ugly, dude. This one's going to get ugly. And I don't know. We keep saying that, like, oh, it's going to be so ugly that heads are going to roll. Someone's going to get fired after this. And it's like, how many times are you going to say that? No, this is not going to happen. Someone's going to get fired. I saw someone tweet that out. Someone's getting fired after this. And then someone else replied, after this. No one was fired after we blew the game against Dallas. No one was fired after we blew the game against Denver. Why do you think someone's going to get fired after this? Like, nah, dude. That's it. If they're not getting fired after what's happened so far this season, they're probably just going to hold on to their jobs for the rest of the season unless they do something. I can't even begin and I have a pretty decent imagination. I cannot imagine what has to happen for Mara to fire these jokers in season. The fact that Dable went into a tent to see what's going on with Dart and got fined like $200,000, didn't get fired. Blew a 19-point lead in the fourth, didn't get fired. Lost 2 games when up by when winning with less than 30 seconds left on the clock twice. Like, and that's just this season. Not to mention what happened in 2023 and 2024, where Dable, we have to have people listening in on the headsets because Dable is like mean to his assistants. Oh boy. What a joke of a franchise. My God, dude. Yeah, the Bears defense is not great. I mean, 25th in passing yards allowed per game and 25th in rushing yards per game. So again, it feels like the Giants offense, despite being down Cam and Neighbors, could still put up points. And they should. It's just a matter of like, is the coaching staff gonna like actually come with a decent game plan, and can Dart not turn the ball over? Because that's going to be the key here. He hasn't turned the ball over much, especially since the Saints game, because the Saints game was the low point, right? But he didn't really, of course, he has the back-breaking interception against the Broncos, but otherwise played a very good game there. Hasn't really turned the ball over. Like, is this the game where he turns the ball over and forces it a lot because our defense, we're down multiple scores because our defense has officially thrown up the white flag and surrendered? Chicago's offense is 9th in total yards. They're tied for 4th in yards per play. They're tied for the 3rd in fewest turnovers, tied for the 3rd fewest fumbles lost, but they do have the 3rd most penalties. So maybe we can count on the refs. Yeah, I know. That just came out of my mouth. I don't know. Like, no, that's not going to happen. We can never count on the refs unless it's roughing the passer against Dart. Bears have the offense has the 6th highest scoring percentage and the 6th lowest turnover percentage. They're tied for 8th in third down percentage, 6th lowest red zone percentage, and they're tied for the 7th most points per drive, but they do have the 3rd worst average start per drive. Not that apparently that doesn't mean dock, because they can still overcome that and score and not turn the ball over. Well, let's keep marching on. The pass offense is slightly above average in terms of expected points. They have the 12th most expected points contributed. 6th lowest completion percentage, which is interesting, but they're tied for the 4th fewest interceptions and the 6th lowest in interception percentage. They're 10th in passing yards per game, and they have the 5th fewest sacks allowed, the 6th lowest sacks percentage. So, I mean, if the pass rush can't get to Mac Jones against the banged up backup offensive line for the Niners, and they didn't really show up against a Eagles offensive line that was also hurting for squirting, I don't think the pass rush is going to do much more against this Bears offensive line. And this feels like, I mean, the Bears just played the Bengals. The Bengals have a very similar defense to ours in terms of like what they've been able to, what or the lack thereof of what they've been able to do. So I'd imagine you're going to see a Bears scoring in the high 30s, mid to high 30s, possibly 40 or more points. Now, can our offense keep up with that and do what the Bengals offense did? Probably not. I still see us scoring more than 20 points just because that's the norm for this Giants offense under Jaxson Dart, which is great because we have not had that in so many years, dating back to like Eli. The Daniel Jones era was not marked by many games where we're scoring 20 or more points, which I know it's a low bar, but like at least we're scoring points and the offense isn't dreadful to watch. Caleb Williams is 10th in passing yards per attempt. He is tied for 9th in net yards per passing attempt with Patrick Mahomes. He's tied for 3rd in yards per completion with Drake May. He has 2 game-winning drives and 2 comebacks. He does have 4 fumbles, but he's only lost 1, I believe. So that could be something to keep an eye on. Like if Burns is able to beat his man, if somehow we dial up something where Abdul Carter can get loose or Kayvon can get loose, like just go for the ball. Just go for the ball. The rush offense is slightly better than their passing offense. It's 10th in the NFL by expected points contributed. They're 9th in rushing attempts, 5th in total rushing yards, tied for 5th in rushing touchdowns, tied for 4th in rushing yards per attempt, 2nd in rushing yards per game, and 7th most first downs by rushing. The Bears might not have to pass in this game. They might just run the ball it might be, remember that, was it a Monday night or Sunday night game with the Patriots against the Bills? And it was like horrific weather. It sucked. It was 2020 or 2021. I believe Belichick was still coach, and they just ran and ran and ran. I think they had like 40 plus rushing attempts in that game. And if I'm the Bears, why not? Why even risk it? A throw. Just fucking run and run and run. I mean, literally, the Niners, when they were up by 10, was it 10 in the second half against the Giants? I think they had one pass and it was like 9 straight runs, and all the runs were more than 5 yards. It's like, let's not overthink this, Ben Johnson. You don't have to do all these trick plays where you're throwing a back to Williams or you're pitching it and flipping it back and throwing it back and throwing it. Like, no, you don't even have to do trick plays against this. Like, just base offense, run the ball. That's all you have to do, and you will beat the fudge out of us. Kyle Manange, who is the Rutgers product that I mentioned, he was the backup running back before Swift went down. He's 5th in rushing yards per attempt at 5.3. So we're gonna get, it's gonna be ugly. It's like, the Niners, if they really wanted to, they could have rushed for like 300, 400 yards against us in that game, that Week 9 game. And I think the Bears could do the same. I think you're looking at 200 plus rushing yards that they could easily put up. The Chicago defense has the 8th lowest expected points in the NFL, so they are below average unit. They're tied for the highest yards per play, but they have forced the most turnovers, and they have the highest turnover percentage. They're tied for the 3rd most fumbles recovered, and they have the 3rd fewest penalties and the 5th lowest third down percentage. And here's a weird stat: 3rd lowest time per drive, but also the 11th most points per drive. So it seems like offenses are able to get a lot of chunk plays where they're not getting to 3rd down. So they're getting first downs on 1st and 2nd. They're not getting to 3rd down, and they're moving the ball easily. But the Bears defense is either letting opposing offenses score, or they are forcing turnovers, interceptions, a lot of interceptions, and a lot of fumbles. Their pass defense has the 8th lowest expected points contributed. So you would think, based on the numbies, that Jaxson Dart would be able to capitalize and put up a monster game. He didn't really do it against the Niners. I would like to see it happen against the Bears, but again, I think he plays better. Well, I was going to say he plays better at home than he does on the road, but I don't know if that's necessarily the case. The Chicago pass defense, the Bears pass defense, is tied for the 2nd most passing touchdowns allowed and the highest touchdown percentage allowed. So I would fully expect Dart to get at least 2 passing touchdowns, and I'm hoping for 4. They have the most interceptions and the highest interception percentage. So that's where it might get tricky, where, I would say Dart has done a fairly good job of not succumbing to what was the biggest knock against him coming out of college, was forcing the ball when he's down late. Everyone keeps bringing up that stupid game against the Gators. And he did it to some extent against the Saints, but I don't know that you've really seen that. Well, I guess the Broncos game, he was forcing the ball downfield a lot, and it did not come back to bite him, but whew. So hopefully he's able to not let that happen against the Bears in Chicago. The Bears defense, pass defense, does allow the 4th fewest yards after catch allowed, which is interesting. It's like, all right, big chunk play, but it's not, they're right there and they're tackling. They're not letting anyone slip away. They are tied for the 5th fewest blitzes and the 3rd fewest hurries. They have the 5th fewest knockdowns, the 4th fewest pressures, and they're tied for the 4th fewest QB hits. And they have allowed the 4th highest completion percentage. And they're tied for the 2nd highest yards per pass attempt and the 4th highest yards per completion, and the 8th highest yards per game, and the 10th highest QB rating. So it's like, if you can just avoid throwing interceptions, maybe this is a ball game. I don't know. Maybe this is competitive, but it really comes down to not forcing the ball. And, if Dart is able to, because I don't think, they have an average rush defense. The Bears' rush defense is like 15th in expected points contributed. They have allowed the 10th most total rushing yards and the 3rd highest rushing yards per attempt and the 8th most rushing yards per game. So we should be able to gain a lot of yards on this team. It's going to come down to do not turn the ball over. For instance, Kevin Byard and Tremaine Edmonds, they're both Chicago Bears. They're tied for the most interceptions in the league at 4. Like, Nashawn Wright has 3 picks. So it's like, even though that's secondary, they give up a lot of yards, they give up a lot of touchdowns, they do force turnovers. So you have to be somewhat careful. And I think that Dart has been, for the most part, hasn't really put the ball in harm's way over the past few games. The Bears' special team has the 4th lowest punts inside the 20 percentage, the 3rd highest kickoff return yards per return, which, you know what, it always feels like, and I don't know if I'm just going back to like the Devin Hester era with the Bears, where it seemed like he was always returning a punt or a kickoff for a touchdown against us. But it feels like we could see a kickoff return for a touchdown against the Giants this game. And then they have allowed the 4th lowest field goal percentage. So I fully expect Graham Gano to either miss a kick or have a kick blocked. And then they have the fewest punts forced. So it does make me think that at least it'll be entertaining. It's not going to be fun. Like, we're not going to win, but at least there'll be a lot of points and a lot of yards. We don't have to worry about like the 2021 season where it's like we have negative net passing yards for the game. I mean, Jesus Christ, that was one of the matchups that we had with the friggin' Bears. Lest you forget when friggin' Mike Glennon was our starting quarterback and we got smushed on January 2nd, 2022, 29-3. One of the ugliest, worst games in Giants history. So at least we don't have to sit through that, I don't think. But yeah, that's the preview for the Bears game. Staring down the barrel of 2-8. And it does not get any better after that. I really did think we were going to beat the Niners. I really did. I really thought that we were going to rise up and we would be pissed off and angry about losing Scadaboo and all the bullshit that the defense had to endure in terms of the backlash. And nope. I mean, that was your opportunity to get a win, to get back on the winning side of things against a San Francisco team that, how many injuries can you freaking suffer and still win games? Apparently a lot, because you have Kyle Shanahan and we don't. So, we can't win games when we're fully healthy. So why would we be able to win games when we're missing key contributors? So from here on out, you're looking at 2-8. Packers just lost to the Panthers at home. Panthers are a very weird team. I don't know what to think about them. I just don't know. The Panthers are weird and wacky. Weird, wild stuff. So we are playing the Packers at home. You got to figure there's one more surprise upset win in our pocket. That just always, anytime we have these like really crappy seasons, there's always like, the Chiefs winning against the Chiefs in 2017 or beating the Broncos in 2017 when it's like we were just god awful that season and we end up with those 2 surprise wins in a very down season where we won 3-4 games. 2 of them come against the Broncos and the friggin' Chiefs. I'm sure I'm missing some, but there's always like a surprise win in the mix that makes you think, oh, where has this been this entire season? So who will that be? Who knows? I mean, the Lions just lost to the Vikings at home, which was weird. The Patriots, I think they dropped a game to a team that they should not have. Who was it? Was it the Panthers? I don't think so. The Raiders. I mean, losing in the opener 20-13 to the Raiders is just like, say what? Raiders are so bad. And the Commanders, I mean, Jaden Daniels just got hurt unnecessarily in that Sunday night game against the Seahawks, where it's like they're down 38-7 in the fourth quarter. You want to talk about Brian Dable ruining Jaxson Dart and like doing design runs down multiple scores in the fourth when the game's out of control, out of hand. 38-7 in the fourth quarter, and you still have Jaden Daniels in, and he dislocates his elbow. It's his non-throwing arm, so it's he'll probably make a return at some point in the season. Will it be in time for the December 14th game? I don't know. I'm not so sure that we could beat the Vikings now, and I don't even know if we could beat the Raiders in Vegas anymore. In that Cowboys game, it's almost going to be like, who gives a shit at that point? So, man, it's amazing how we could we're definitely at the halfway point now, and we're 2-7, looking at possibly going another season where we win 3 or 4 games, maybe 5. And to think that we should have 4 or 5 wins already. And it's just comes down to really systemic failures. Barf. Oh, boy. All right. Well, that's the app. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And we'll talk to you next time. Adios, muchachos.